Hello and welcome everyone to the Maine Event. My name is Meeta and I'm hoping that we've got some regulars out there who know us, know the main group, and therefore know the format. But for those of you who don't, I'm going to do some housekeeping. Before we start the housekeeping, I just want to welcome our guest today. Satvir Bungar is here to join us for the next 30 minutes or so, talking about his journey and how that will inspire and support us in our journeys going forward. So Satvir, welcome.
Thank you, Meeta, for having me today.
It's a real pleasure, Satvir. I know you're busy and I know you're in demand, so I appreciate your time to share your life journey so far and the lessons learned along the way. So just going to start with some housekeeping. So we're on LinkedIn Live. It is live, but it's also recorded. So if you're somebody that's signed up and hasn't been able to log in right at the start, don't worry. We will make recordings available. We also make this as interactive as possible to make it useful for you as our audience. So we have a chat box here on the right where you can post your comments or questions or anything that you feel is relevant. We run pretty much weekly webinars, and the main event is really about giving you as an audience something to take away and apply back in your worlds immediately. So we're not here to create rocket science solutions. We're here to talk about real life challenges, real life solutions, and things that you can apply back in your world. Ultimately, people, leaders, and business owners, anyone who's out there facing real world problems will be able to take away some real nuggets and solutions from their time with us. So Satvir, we were talking about time and the lack of, the one commodity really that you can't, create. And you've chosen to, give us some of your time today. So what's made you want to come along and just share some of your history and stories of life so far?
Well, what I'm really keen today is to share a bit about my background, because having come back from developed my career starting in very humble beginnings in a working class family in the Black Country, and achieved quite a bit of success in my career so far, and really to share some of those kind of learning lessons and opportunities for others to ask questions along the way, and benefit from my experience and learn probably from some of the areas where I didn't have the level of support back then, to provide that level of support, because it is something I'm very passionate about in terms of my role at BDO as well, in how we help mentor people in the organization. So doing what I can outside of the 9 to 5, so to speak, kind of role is really important to me. And it's one of the areas I'll probably touch on later in terms of the charitable work I do in supporting others, particularly those from marginalized backgrounds, let's say. And strong advocate in that area.
Fantastic. Well, I think that is so key at a time like now. We, in the economy, we're facing some, very unusual challenges that are making for, we've been in recessions before. I certainly know I've been through a few myself, but always different factors that bring, our economy into these ups and downs. And currently we're seeing, the lowest level of unemployment, and yet the highest levels of the cost of living, in 30 odd years. And you spoke about, helping people who are starting out and giving them that insight. I mean, we're both from diverse backgrounds. We both, probably come from, families with strong work ethics. But if you were to go right back to the start, what was it for you that made you want to strive to achieve something?
Sure, it's a really good question. My parents, probably like yours, many others, came to this country with not a lot of money. Were working all hours, God sends, to provide for their family, and therefore, I remember from the early days, there were many things I couldn't have because of the kind of challenges, particularly financial challenges we had back then in the 70s. But what I'd learned from then was the importance of being resourceful. So my parents would go about their daily lives in terms of shopping and things that they had to purchase for us, and everybody was a lot more smarter then about how you'd go about buying products. And learning about being resourceful is really, really important, and it's very relevant in today's times as well. practically from a perspective of how you go about doing your daily shopping, but also in terms of your priorities and purchasing stuff that's relevant for your job, and having that discipline about where you spend your time and effort to get the maximum amount back is really, really important. And I remember when I was back at school, there were many situations where teachers would be saying to people in my class, including myself in particular, to be very realistic about the kind of career or job that you'll end up in. And sometimes those negative comments were really disappointing, and they kind of cut you to the core. So that gave me all the resilience and kind of motivation, let's say, to really want to prove them wrong and do really well with my career. And it gave me that focused mind to have a real disciplined attitude to getting ahead at school, getting the grades, and whilst living in that kind of environment where you had limited kind of ability to get all the support you ideally wanted.
And that, that grit, that determination, that's something that all employers now are looking for. The next generation coming into business, and with such a skills shortage, especially in the UK with the double bubble of Brexit and the pandemic, businesses are crying out for people with that grit and determination. And unfortunately, many people, as you mentioned, who are marginalized because they don't necessarily have the right CV or the right upbringing, or perhaps the right accent, the way they speak. So many people miss out on opportunity, and so many organizations miss out on people who actually have got exactly the right attitude. So what would you say to employers that were, thinking about hiring, and, because that's the game I'm in, helping businesses attract great people and then grow them. But, we're also up against these sort of stigmas that I feel really hold no place anymore. What's your take on that?
So the whole area of diversity and inclusion is particularly important, and again, very, very central to my focus, both within BDO and outside of my kind of my role at BDO. And having that real diversity of thought and thinking presents additional ideas. You usually get to a better answer because you've got diversity of thought. And particularly given the experiences we've all had during lockdown, the importance of mental health is particularly key here. And recognizing everybody has a role to play, everybody has a talent that can add value. And I've seen this firsthand in some of my kind of charitable work I do outside of BDO, where I'm involved with a charitable organization called Miss Macaroon, which is all about promoting the importance of marginalized young people and getting them back into the world of employment. And I've been seeing a lot of the graduates that have gone through our kind of comprehensive training program in that organization, and seeing them improve their lives and provide real skills out there for a variety of industries, whether they're leisure or food retail. It's really impressive to see the value that they can all add, and the level of latent talent that's out there available. If you adopt a kind of non-conventional route to accessing a labour pool that is really keen to improve their lives and be a valuable labour resource for you, it's yeah, absolutely. I'm a strong advocate of the whole importance of that diversity of thinking and thought, and accessing that real kind of pool of talent out there.
And I think for talent acquisition, managers, people involved in that hiring, it's really reflecting on what biases you might bring in based on whether it's business related strategy, whether it's personal experience. All of that has to really be addressed now, doesn't it? Because I think, for us, we've both been in business a similar amount of time, 20 years. And I think in our day, education and standing out and being exceptional was the only way to really be noticed. And for so many, it was changing lives, coming from first generation immigrants, potentially getting everything we need, but not necessarily everything we want, certainly has been a huge driver for me. Unfortunately, I have, therefore, with the next generation of my own 3 teenagers, perhaps not exposed them to as much desire and drive to want for things. And I think for young people now, their drivers have shifted from perhaps, not being at, social, economic, challenging situations where they have to grow out, but actually looking for a company, an organization that fits their own values, and wanting to belong to something that really lights their fire. I mean, things like sustainability, and a shared value system. Have you seen that shift in your experience?
Absolutely. If I look back to BDO when I joined the firm 17 odd years ago, it is a very different environment. So today we have, for example, a comprehensive agile working policy, which is all about helping people get about their lives better and navigate their responsibilities on a practical level much more easier, whilst still being able to provide a kind of infrastructure to get the job done. So working from home, for example, under our agile working policy is a very comprehensive kind of program, allowing people to be a lot more flexible now in terms of where they need to be on a practical basis. And again, when I started at the firm, we never had that opportunity back then. And both for myself and for my team,
Yeah,
sometimes it did present huge challenges. And I think we've become a lot more efficient now in terms of how we go about our daily lives. But also the pandemics have brought about a real window into people's lives, their personal lives, which for me has been particularly beneficial, because both for my client base and for our team, you get to really understand the person a lot better. And I personally don't want to go back to how it used to be.
yeah,
And that, for example, is a real example of where we have migrated towards a much better employee proposition.
yeah. To attract but also retain employees, overcome burnout, overcome mental health challenges. And if we look at the corporate world, or we look at more of the sort of boutique world, historically the corporate world didn't have the room for authentic engagement and presence. It was very much about objectives, strategies, outputs, targets. And it's really, it's warming, and it's reassuring to hear that, for your experience and for your people, that despite there being challenges, and I think that's across the board in any business, by being more flexible, the benefits outweigh the challenges, and we're getting smarter at overcoming the challenges. What would you say you've experienced some of those challenges to be by becoming more hybrid and flexible?
I think for me, one of the real challenges, particularly for some of our youngsters, our graduates that are joining the organisation, if I look back to my early career, both at BDO and also at previous professional firms, I benefited from learning a lot from listening to people on calls. So you was working pretty long hours from 8 till 9 or 10 at night, and he was constantly working on complex projects with kind of very demanding deadlines for outputs. And hearing other people talk about their projects and how they dealt with their issues was particularly useful. It's
Yeah,
those conversations in the coffee room, in the lift, that walking out to lunch, that 10-minute conversation you're speaking with, having with somebody else in the organization is particularly valuable. And
yeah,
whilst the hybrid approach is brilliant and it's brought about many advantages for the organization and our clients, it has, I think, for me, for new people joining the profession in our world of work, it is a bit of bit of a challenge, I think, because they don't have the benefit of that freedom to listen to other conversations going around the floor.
yeah.
And most
Values
of the times
statement.
it's brilliant, but it can sometimes become quite mechanical. So I do tend to spend a bit of time with the team, speaking to them on a regular basis outside of the usual kind of project call type discussions.
Yeah,
Um, and also when I'm in the office, I'm going out my way a lot more now to engage with the team and be around the team so that they can ask anything they want to. And that probably for me is probably the most important challenge we've got to overcome, to be available for our graduates and our trainees
yeah,
to provide that comprehensive support, in addition to the on the job project type support that you would obviously benefit from anyway, wherever you work. So it's that ability to engage and be around people. So we've got a slightly different model where we have the people encouraged to come into the office certain days a week. I think that blend is particularly useful because it then does break down some of the barriers of looking at a screen all day.
Yeah, I agree. And from clients I speak to every day, that tends to be the biggest challenge is the future proofing of an organization and bringing in the next tranche of grads and trainees. And you mentioned about the little conversations over lunch and in the lift. It's learning by osmosis. It's literally learning by being immersed in an environment that we probably couldn't even turn into a list of trainable objectives. It really is about absorbing your environment. And I always hear about this anecdotal story about a police station that removed their canteen. And when they removed their canteen, their rate of solving crime went down, because actually it was when people from different parts of the whether it's the CID or drug squad or the bobbies on the beat, all kind of intermingling and sharing information, that they were able to cross pollinate and actually find links that they wouldn't have had they not been immersed in each other's world. So there is work to do there. And I think every employer currently has embraced the hybrid, majority of employers, because it's a great attraction and retention tool. But there are some creaks in the sort of day-to-day impact of that, and it will evolve. It's a bit like a blank page, really, isn't it? We have the opportunity to write whatever story we want to now as businesses going forward. And I think you mentioned about the importance of marginalized talent and how businesses should be open to that. How have you seen, you mentioned that there were people that have been through this process with you. What is it about the marginalized workforce that creates that success? What would you say it is about them that is worth backing?
Sure. So I think, again, for me personally, that the whole topic about diversity and inclusion, embracing talents from all backgrounds is kind of taught all the time, but it can be sometimes very difficult to implement in practice.
Yeah,
So for me, one of the big challenges is around unconscious bias. So when you've got individuals that are particularly keen to excel, to develop their career, having others, similar people to look up to in similar, from similar backgrounds in very senior roles is very, very important.
yeah,
Because unless you've been walking the shoes, you have the experience of the individual in question, it's difficult to have that real empathy.
yeah,
So for me, it's about having representation, but also to have allies as well, of the entire workforce, to embrace the whole importance of diversity inclusion around capturing individuals from different backgrounds. So, for example, at BDO, I lead one of the major societies and campaigns that we have in the firm called CEDAR, which is all about celebrating ethnic roots and talents.
okay,
And this is about bringing together everybody from a very different background. And we're very lucky in the Birmingham office. We've got a huge representation from people that have joined the organisation, particularly in the last year, 18 months, from all over the world. We've got
brilliant.
people from South Africa, from South Asia, Europe, and every time we run seminars, we have conversations with individuals. We're always talking about you know tips and ideas and how best to get ahead. And I remember when I started 15, 16 years ago, I didn't have similar people to look up to back then,
Yeah,
or certainly not as many. And the importance of having mentors both inside and outside of the organization is very, very important to help develop your career, because then you can benefit from their experiences, what they've been through,
yeah.
which is what I'm particularly passionate about, sharing my experiences on a regular basis, so that I provide that medium, that opportunity for others to ask questions. Because there's clearly a lot more still to be done by most organisations, including ours. We're doing some great things, but I think that there's a real push and requirement to do a lot more.
There's always work to be done.
Absolutely, and as I said, we have to be in an organisation where we are building empathy. Um, Being different to me is not about having different coloured hair or different coloured skin. it's about the ability to have the freedom to express my views and be heard. And if you're in that environment where you feel confident that your views are valued, we are going to get the best out of everybody, and problems are going to be solved much more efficiently. We're going to have greater diversity of thoughts and idea generation to develop. Um, I know that's really, really important. Now, for example, today in the Birmingham office, we're celebrating World Heritage Day today, and we've got all sorts of activities in the office. If it wasn't for one of my other project meetings later, I would have been in the office for sure. And we've got people bringing in food, we've got stories, we've got people decorating the kitchen canteen area, for example, and it's going to bring a lot of people together to talk about more about their background, and also to build that networking relationship in the organization,
Yeah.
particularly with people from different departments. And I think that's brilliant.
It's so powerful, you know. If you tried to teach this in a room, it would have zero impact. You immerse people into each other's worlds, and they literally absorb it, understand it, respect it, and are they grow from that. And they talk a lot about that. If you see it, then you can be it. So again, you spoke about representation, and for all marginalized youth, or you know, even the diversity of still getting the balance of the women in the workforce, and equal gender pay gap challenges, all of those still exist. And I do believe that more and more organizations spend time in embracing cultural differences. See, my thing is that you can be from different backgrounds but share similar values, and I think that values and culture play probably the biggest part in people's decisions on maybe not where they choose to work, but where they choose to stay. You know,
Absolutely.
and how have you balanced it for yourself in your journey? You know, you've always worked in corporate environments. Again, historically, that can mean that, you know, not you don't always get to work with people who are aligned in values, but more are aligned in vision and direction. How have you found the ability to balance your values with the work you do and the people you work with?
Sure. So to be fair, that's probably why I'm still here at BDO, having been here 17 years, because
Yeah,
as a practicing Sikh, faith is very important to me. And one of the core values of Sikhism is around seva, what we call selfless support. And to me, that forms many kind of practical manifestations, whether it's simply giving money to a much needed charity in terms of funds, it's providing pro bono roles and company boards, or providing a variety of mentoring support in the organization to help people develop their career. And again, I'm very lucky at BDO that we have a comprehensive program here around mentoring, and I'm part of the national mentoring program, where I've
interesting.
practically seen firsthand how some of my areas of support to individuals outside of my office in other offices around the firm, around the country, have really benefited and helped them develop their career. And BDO has a strong alignment around core values, which mirror my personal religious belief values. And as a result, I feel I'm in a very comfortable place to be able to carry on, as you say, on the one hand, working on the vision and strategy where we all share a common goal
Yeah,
and develop the organization. But at a practical level, there's a serious kind of vision around practical values and practical areas of how we want to provide that sustainable level of support to both our people and the organization and the environment in which we work in.
yeah,
There's a serious common alignment there, which is what, you know, I interview quite a lot of people through our recruitment process, and it's one of the common areas that we get challenged on in terms of our attitude to ESG, both
yeah,
at a macro level but also at a practical level in the Birmingham office. So simple things like we give our staff 5 to 10 days a year to support any charitable cause and spend that time whichever way you want to on a fully paid
wow,
basis.
fantastic.
Um, and when we embrace all the stories, we have Yammer accounts internally where individuals talk about their kind of experiences providing that kind of voluntary support, so that others can, you know, benefit from that in terms of things that they may wish to do as well.
Yeah,
And we compare and contrast all the great stories and some of the challenges we have around the organisation in those kind of roles,
yeah.
and the support we provide to local communities, and embrace effectively what works best and improve on that year on year. So I think there's a great culture in the organisation to pursue a number of those initiatives, which is, as I said, why I'm still here today.
Well, a fantastic retention story, but also, something that would attract the next generation of BDO employees and, people that want to be seen, not just doing a role, not just fulfilling an objective, but people being seen for their authentic self. And authenticity being celebrated, I think, is what this is all about. And as you said, that if there is a silver lining that has emerged from the pandemic, it's that allowing people to be their authentic self means they actually put their energy into their work rather than thinking they have to behave in a certain way, and that is just a win-win all round. Again, leads back to the mental health and well-being of employees, all which feeds back into retention and higher performance, more engagement, and just a happier workforce.
I think in this environment, when we are, as you said, in this hybrid approach now, we have to be that bit more mindful of the fact that there are going to be individuals who feel a bit more alienated, a bit more distanced
Yeah,
in this hybrid approach, and therefore there is a real opportunity for us to embrace that challenge and turn it into a real opportunity. And we're very fortunate. We've got some fantastic talent in our team. And we've got some real stars coming through the ranks over the coming years. And what we want to do is give them all the opportunity we can to ensure that they capitalize on that complete video experience. But as we said earlier, it can be challenging sometimes when you're not around the key people, you're not in those high performing teams all the time, and therefore you fear people are getting left behind, and that's a massive opportunity for us, which is why having, going back to the core roots around our core values and purpose and our common purpose around what we're about, it is really, really important, because it allows us to continue to connect and engage with everybody in the organization, because we employ approximately 7,000 people now in the organization,
yeah,
and staying in touch with all of our talent, it can be particularly challenging, and therefore celebrating heritage like the events we got on today, for example, are
yeah.
really important to us to ensure we do genuinely stay engaged and relevant to our staff.
Fantastic. And gives them that sense of belonging, which is what everybody wants, to feel like they belong, because that's when they want to give back with the work they do. And that's fantastic. So, Satvir, I hear of the successes. I hear of your purpose and your focus for your career and what you forged, in achieving that. You obviously must do it very well, because you were awarded an MBE in 2018, I believe. I was just looking at your profile. That's amazing. What was that for? Tell me.
So that was clearly a long time ago now. It certainly feels a distant past now, memory. But yes, I was very fortunate enough to be recognised in the Queen's Birthday Honours back in 2018, and it was partly a reflection of the work that I do in the world of corporate finance. My day job is advising corporates on mergers and acquisitions activities and negotiating transactions for our clients.
Yeah,
And I've been very lucky. A real turning point in my career many years ago was when I started specialised in the business services sector, and it's a sector I lead nationally for the firm now. And
okay,
through that focus, we've been very lucky to work on many transformational transactions that have helped positively develop the sector in various submarkets. And therefore, it was partly a recognition of the effort that we as a firm have achieved. I've been very lucky to have very, very strong teams working with me in those transactions, but also reflecting the pro bono and charitable work that I do outside of the organisation as well. Where again, I've had a real passion over the years to work with company boards of education establishments, other community groups, and charitable organisations, where I'm helping them provide that level of professionalism that they ordinarily couldn't afford. My charge out rate is at a level where the charity that I work with just simply couldn't afford half a day of
yeah,
my time, let
yeah,
alone the support I try and offer. And I'm always fighting for time, but I'm genuinely keen to help professionalize those boards and those processes, and provide that kind of strategic thinking that we regularly provide our kind of our comprehensive client base.
yeah,
And what you really see in practice is a real practical um, difference. So all the input that I put into the roles that I work with outside of the firm, you can genuinely see quite quickly the benefit that ensues, and that to me is really, really important, because I believe the from a macro perspective, UK PLC has really benefited me over the years. It's helped given me all the opportunities to develop my career.
Yeah.
Uh, and I feel it's a bit of a debt I need to pay back to society. Some of the kind of the opportunities that I've been fortunate to be part of, and making those, even those small contributions or small differences, has a profound long-term positive impact, and that's what keeps me interested in trying to do more of that. So I think it was a combination of all of that in a gibberish way of trying to summarize why I think.
No, I think it's very real, and you've given us a bit of an insight into, you know, what drives you, and the fact that you do want to share your knowledge. And as you said, you know, these charity boards, with all the drive and all the passion, don't always have the right structure or direction, and to provide them, that will make an infinitesimal impact compared to where they might be where you're not involved. And it's not a given that everyone in your position would do that. So thank you, I suppose, and well done. And no wonder you were awarded an MBE. Were you awarded that from the Queen, or was that King Charles? What was the experience there?
So that was in fortunate enough to visit Buckingham Palace that year, and it was awarded by King Charles.
Wow. I mean, obviously a timely, conversation with us losing the Queen and all the rest of it. But again, you know, King Charles is such a strong advocate for sustainability, for diversity. He wants to, you know, bring this new, fresh approach to the Commonwealth. So it's going to be interesting times for UK PLC and our country in general, isn't it, at the moment?
I think so. And again, from my personal experiences, what I can kind of refer to, my short time I had with him when I was at Buckingham Palace, I was pleasantly surprised that he, when I went up to collect, collect my kind of recognition, he'd
Yeah,
done the homework. He'd asked me 6 or 7 key questions about what I do and how I go about providing the kind of the work that I do.
yeah.
He'd clearly done the homework. He asked me, really thought-provoking questions, and I was pleasantly surprised because there were probably about 80 people that day that
Wow.
were recognised on the day, and we're going through the kind of the honours kind of process
Yeah,
with King Charles, and he clearly had done the homework on each and every one of them. And I was speaking to some of the people I was networking with afterwards, and they all said the same thing. They were genuinely surprised, positively surprised that they had a real interest in each and every one that was recognised on the day, and that left a real positive, even more of a positive impression for me about him and the royal family. And obviously, it was very sad to hear the recent passing of our late Majesty.
yeah,
But as you say, he has a brilliant opportunity to engage more with the country and the
yeah.
Commonwealth in general. And he's doing an amazing job already, and I'm sure it'll be a great success.
Yeah, yeah, interesting times. But I feel we were in trusted hands. Actually, he talked about this being the reign of continuity, and you know, the Queen's values were so positive, and what she brings, old fashioned but so relevant for this time. You know, which is again something I think we could be reminded of, but our younger generations could learn. You know, responsibility, duty, consistency, hard work, you know, all of these things will only set them in good stead for whatever field they choose to work in.
Absolutely. Well, the Queen, Her Majesty, the Queen was a real constant in all of our lives, and she was, for me, she was more than a monarch. She redefined an era,
Yeah,
with a real unparalleled level of kind of compassion and dedication, as you say. And yeah, I was lucky enough to be able to visit her lying in state at the weekend, and
wow.
some people I was telling about the story about that was saying it's a long time to it's a real kind of challenge to queue up and do that in the middle of the night or during the day. And we luckily went overnight, and I thought it's absolutely nothing in comparison. It's the least I felt that we could do to pay our respects and support everything that she'd done
Wow.
um, in her lifetime. And yeah, it's
Anything on
one of
that?
those memories you'll never forget.
Yeah, that's amazing. Satvir, the success that we've talked about, your personal journey and your values, it's so it's refreshing, and I really appreciate your time. And we all know that the journey to success is not a linear path. It's very much the ups and downs. And I'd love to ask you, if any, what challenges, just to tie things up today, I'd love to hear of a challenge that you faced and how you might have overcome that.
So in my role, as I've become much more senior, you start to manage people, and you've got to make decisions about people. And sometimes we've had some great success stories. Sometimes we made some wrong decisions. But I think you've got to accept criticism, and you've got to move on. And one of the biggest lessons for me was you've got to accept you will be criticized, because if you don't, people will do it anyway.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I think you've got to accept that you will make mistakes, but you've got to live with the mistakes, and you've got to learn from the mistakes. And
yeah,
to me, I still have many mentors I still lean on for advice and support when you feel you're in those tricky situations. And never, the biggest advice I can give is to talk to people, and
yeah,
share your frustrations, or seek advice and counsel from individuals, because mentors bring a massive level of experience, because they've clearly been in different experiences, and you will get the benefit of that. And that's one of the things I never had in my earlier years. It's one of the most important kind of challenges I think I would kind of ask people to have. Um,
yeah,
I think for me, it's also about recognizing the fact that um, when you're working with individuals, you really need to spend time getting to know them, because when you're working in a high pressurized environment, um, understanding people around you, whether it's your client base or whether it's the people that work with you to deliver those documents at kind of short notice, and those
yeah,
kind of pressurized situations, really understanding the individual and their motivations. I think it can only help develop relationships better with the
yeah.
team.
It's building trust and confidence, isn't it? And
It is.
that understanding again cuts through so many misunderstandings that actually aren't intended, but just where people are coming from different perspectives. I think that it's a very powerful lesson. But
I
you're,
think that what I was also trying to say was, again, I've had the benefit over the years. If I look back over my career so far, I've had the benefit of working with some real dynamic people. And dynamic people could be the clients that you work for. It could be individuals in your own organization that
yeah,
work around you. And for me, some of those dynamic individuals helped shape my career.
yeah,
So in an organization, if you're lucky enough to work in a large organization, network as widely as you can, find those dynamic individuals, because they will help shape your future career.
yeah.
And then that for me is probably the biggest lesson and takeaway, I think, for aspiring individuals who want to develop their own careers.
Yeah. Um, a great strong note to end on: mentoring and mentorship. And you've given us your time today to give us some mentoring in this sort of 30, nearly 40-minute session now. But likewise, I think it's never too late, is it? As you said, you may not have had mentors earlier on, but you've benefited from networking, getting to know people, having mentors. And I think that is probably the biggest lesson for all of us. If I look at my turning point, it was when I actually realized I can't do it all on my own. I'm not an island. And if I lean on and identify people who can challenge me, support me, give me different perspectives, that will only help me grow to be better at what I do and who I am. So that's fantastic.
Absolutely, and hopefully those mentors will also become real networking champions of you in the
Yeah,
future, and help open doors into either new careers or new clients and customers for your business development. And again, over the years, if I look back at the various mentors I've had, and the kind of the not so obvious opportunities that they've put across my desk, it's been unbelievable. And it's I genuinely ask your audience to spend a bit of time thinking about who you want to be your mentor,
yeah,
because you'll be pleasantly surprised. There's plenty of support out there. People in my roles are very, very keen to give back and give the advice and give the the guidance that we never had when we started out. And I think it would be a really good use of time.
Yeah, and will grow everyone's individual worlds for success and happiness. Brilliant. Satvir, thank you so much. I've realised that my timekeeping is atrocious, but
It's been fantastic. I've been really proud to have the opportunity to share some of my thoughts with you and your audience.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much. We'll say bye for now.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Cheers.
Thank you.